Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. A person that needs now that he's on TV, you know that face. You knew that face anyway. But Rapheal Davis joins us for segment 3. And he is fast becoming a media. He already was a media mogul before he got joined with the Big Ten, but now as a big BTN analyst for basketball. First, welcome to the show. And second, that's got to be a real fun and exciting gig for you.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun learning the ropes, kind of getting used to everything. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. What has been, I mean, from a learning perspective, what was something that we might not see that you got to focus on, that you know that is something you had to maybe change the way you present yourself, or the kind of training you received leading into this, or has there not been that much of that?
Well, okay, I'll give you a couple of things. My biggest thing that I'm still transitioning and learning is knowing which camera to look at.
Yeah, that's hard.
So understanding where to look when you're not talking to the guys, when you try to make a point, knowing which camera, what light to look at is a lot of, I don't think people realize how many cameras are in the studio. So, I mean, even just more than one is a lot to me. So knowing which camera to look at, making eye contact with the right camera. And then two, it wasn't necessarily a lot of training going into it. I talked to Jay Billis about it. He gave me some amazing tips and cues a couple of weeks before going into it. Coach Steve Lavin gave me some tips and cues going into it. And then it's more about reaching out to people, even like Steve, even before joining the network, Stephen Bardo had me on his show and kind of talk to me through things. So, and then obviously Robbie just helping through things and being a resource. So it was more of picking others' brains and kind of doing your own research to it than necessarily training. I tend to always ask what they think after the show still. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you just hope you're still doing a good job, and you ask for tips from the guys that's been doing it for a long time. So still learning on the job.
You're absolutely doing a good job. We've watched you, and you come through very well and very fluid. And you know, it's a hard gig, and I've been doing it for a while, and not at your level anywhere close. But the tips that Jay Billis or Steve Lavin or Rob Hummel gave you, what is there a common thread there, or something? Boy, if you're going to do one thing in this medium, you need to do it well. Is there one thing that seems to resonate among most of these folks that gave you some advice?
Yeah, if you're going to make a point, stand on it. If you make a point, maybe not in those words, but if you make a point, stand by your point, mean it, say what you mean. But each of them kind of carried that be yourself. Yeah. I mean, because it's not acting, but you kind of gotta, like you said, kind of gotta have a personality, but still be yourself through it all. And enjoy it. And that was kind of if I look at all three of them and what I take from all three is kind of the same, that would be it right there. But I mean, like Jay Billis, Coach Painter had us read his book while we were in college, Toughness. Yeah. And for him to, you transitioned, I don't know how long ago I was in college when we read that book, but years ago to now, he's been a resource, been extremely down to earth. Told me stop calling him Mr. Billis. Yeah. And then for Coach Lavin, I never met Steve Lavin in person for him to be a Purdue guy. For him to be a resource and be open to it, even on California time. So we miss each other sometimes, but I remember going into my audition, like he was texting me like during the audition, and then after it, he's checking in, and then Robbie, all of them just were just helpful. And they all and it's kind of been that way even at the network, like Pizzo and Mike Hall, all of those guys are, Dave Remsen, they're all really helpful, and they want you to be successful. But it's been a fun process and journey. But yeah, we're still learning and trying to get better at it. And it's cool to be in something that you can try and get better at. So it's cool to be back in that type of environment. And that's what I'll say.
Yeah, well put. And I think that's a great attitude of doing it. Now you're commuting from Fort Wayne to Chicago. What is a typical, when you're on the set, and especially when there's a full load of Big Ten games, et cetera. What's your work week like? Do you go over on Saturday, or tell us a little bit about that? And I assume you stay overnight, a night or two, or how does that work when you're in Chicago?
Well, like now I got to Chicago last night. Actually, I got to Chicago last night, so I had to do the Today show today, which was today, 12 Eastern.
Yeah.
And then I don't have anything tomorrow. And then Saturday, I have a slate of games to be in studio for. I think the first game is Illinois at 11. And then I think the last game starts at 8. So that'll be 10 hours of watching games and doing this, like the halftime shows and the post-game shows and stuff like that. And then Sunday, I don't have anything. I'll probably go see my daughter Sunday and back and forth away. And then Monday, I have the Big Ten Today show, the morning show. And then I'll call the Purdue Incarnate Word game from a studio in Chicago. And then Tuesday, this has probably been my busiest set. Yeah. So it's not always like this. But then Tuesday, I will have the morning show and the night show, the Big Ten show after the game. So it's kind of, normally I would say 3 times a week. Sometimes it's been maybe 2 during the week and 1 on the weekend. But these next 6 days are going to be a grind. I'm a guy that if someone asks me to do it, I'm going to say yes. So a lot of my things have come from me just saying yes to everything, which I enjoy. So yeah.
That goes with the territory when you're a defensive player of the year. You're willing to get in there and mix it up. So I think that doesn't surprise me about you, Rapheal.
Yeah, you get better with reps.
Yeah, there you go. You know, you look at it, and what's it like doing that game, you know, when you do it when you're not in person, and you're going to do Purdue Incarnate Word and from the studios in Chicago, and that's kind of been an offshoot of COVID world and how that works. How has that been from that standpoint? Does that present a different type of challenge when you do that?
Well, to be honest, I've never done one in person.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I see it more as, because when I have called a game from the studio, Nebraska, Tennessee State game, was with Lisa, and Lisa Byington, and she was amazing. She had the energy that you would think she was right there at the game. I mean, she was moving in her chair. She was very energetic, so it gave me life. Yeah. So I don't know. I've heard some guys call games in different locations.
Yeah.
I think that might be tough because you're not feeding off each other's energy. But with me, to me, it just feels like I'm at home just talking. Yeah. So I'm curious to see what it'll be like in person. Go out to Penn State in January, so I get that feel for it. That probably will be tougher just because that will be new at the time. But at this point, you're kind of feeding off the play-by-play, you're feeding off the analysts, you're feeding off the energy of the room. And when the game is lacking energy, you kind of got to build your own. But I'm kind of used to building on energy. But I would say that's something I have to work on. Just build energy when you're not at the game.
Now your Purdue hat has to be checked at the door, and that's a challenge, I think. Even though I think Rob Hummel does it well, and you do it well as well. Was that a challenge at all for you? Just, you know, the fact that you know what Matt Painter's about, you know what he's going to do, you know, those kind of things, which can really help you in a broadcast, but you also have to have a little bit of that affinity that you can't bring to the broadcast, I assume.
Yeah. With 2 things. It helps that Purdue's the best team in the league when I come into the network. So you talk about Purdue a lot, and that's what we've been doing. So I know Purdue well, so that helps. But then the first game, Indiana State game I called, I think I caught myself saying we and us and stuff like that. I was real Purdue heavy. I was wasn't using last names. I was calling Sasha and Jaden. I mean, I know these guys, so I was calling them by their names and just real informal, just like I was one of the guys. So after I was just realized that, because you rewatch the game, you talk to the producers, you do different things. So after you realize that, it was easier to go into it from that. But it helps just that they're winning and that they're the best team. So when you do talk about them, you don't sound biased, because everything you've been saying, people are starting to realize. So it's one of those I told you so moments too.
There you go. All right, now look at this team, and again, you're going to do the Incarnate Word, and and of course they play Butler. This is actually airing on Friday. Butler tomorrow. You would, you're probably the one guy credited really for Purdue's turnaround. When you look at where you had your first couple of years, where the program struggled, you got it back. You were the heart and soul of that. This team is really loaded. They've got maybe went through a little bit of a down period so far the last 3 games, but what are you seeing from this group, and what do you see? What does it have to do in your view to get to the level that it needs to maybe make a Final Four or compete for the national championship?
Yeah, I guess I'll start by saying these opinions are my own.
Yeah, I totally understand.
I don't think that they've been playing that hard. Yeah. And it could look like they're playing hard, but to me, it just seems this, like I said, this is just me, but it seems like obviously they know they're good and they've been shooting the ball so well that they just expect shots to go in. They expect to outscore you. They're really good in transition. They want to get in transition and play. But the little things like playing hard or like being on your line, like defensive rotations and stuff like that, I don't think they've been doing. Yeah. And that's what's caught up to them. I don't think they've taken a pride in defending. I mean, I've had guys go for 30 on me, but it's not a good feeling when a guy has 30 on you and the game winner. So you got to take pride in defending. They're going to score points. I think they got to make shots if they're going to have that type of mentality to outscore you. I think they're like 14 for 46, 47 from 3 in their last 3 games. So they're not going to be able to shoot it and like that and not defend. It's going to, you've seen NC State, you've seen Rutgers. So if they're not going to make shots, they're going to have to defend at a really high level. I think that this last 7 minutes of regulation in overtime, NC State, they defended at a high level and they kept guys out of the lane. You could tell they started to follow the scouting report better. They really, like I was in studio yelling at Ethan and all the guys what to do on that ball screen, and see Brian just keep getting in the middle of the court. Yeah. But once you could tell that they had worked on it, because once he started to do it and he just wouldn't get in the middle of the court. So in the paint. So if they just follow the details, because they're extremely talented. They're one of the most talented teams, and they're big, they're strong, they're skilled, and you can't really teach a lot of those things. And if Trayvon's playing the way he's playing, and Jaden sneakily had 22 points against NC State. So and now Isaiah, it looks like Isaiah's playing well. It looks like Eric is coming into his own, especially defensively. He had 2 big stops and then just a heady backdoor cut to get a layup. And then Ethan has really earned more minutes. So, he just does. It just reminds me of just like Dakota, not necessarily the skill set, but they just always do the right thing. Yeah. And they just always try to do what you're asking them to. So it seems as though Ethan's really just kind of following what he's told, and he's really skilled. You see, he makes good plays. I didn't realize, I was at practice a couple weeks ago, I didn't realize how big he was. Yeah. So if I could play the 4 in the Big Ten, I know he can. Yeah. So it's one of the things where it gives him a different look that I don't know. They realize it because coach switches the lineups a lot in practice. Yeah. But I don't know if a lot of people realize that you could slide Ethan to the 4 and you have a small ball lineup. Yeah. And that's how they ended up beating NC State. Right. So, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to have to defend at a higher level and then take care of the ball. They've been doing that. But then they're going to have to make shots. They can't go 6 for 27 or they can't. Sasha can't make his only 3s in the last 2 minutes and then in overtime. He's got to make shots earlier. And that's a lot of pressure on guys. I'm saying that I'm not on the floor, but this is a Final Four level team. They're going to have to make 3s. Yeah. Well said. Great analysis. Okay. Now you watch some Big Ten teams, and we've already had to start the first weekend of Big Ten play, but is there somebody out there, everybody's talked about Michigan and Purdue, Illinois, maybe Michigan State, somebody else out there, and Purdue fans already know about Iowa, but anybody else that's going to sneak up on people from your perspective? Is it Wisconsin? Is it Minnesota surprising to you? What do you see? Well, yeah, I would have said Michigan State, just because a lot of people didn't mention them early. Right. They put them kind of the bottom of the middle of the Big Ten. I think they're going to be good. I think Michigan State's always going to be good.
Yeah.
And Tom Izzo, I mean, by the way it seems, you would think he's had some down years. It's kind of the way it feels. And I just don't think you keep Tom Izzo is a really good coach.
Yeah.
You just don't keep a good coach down that long. And I think it's good for these guys. It reminds me when they had Trice and Valentine, just kind of a lot of under the radar guys. And they just were, I mean, like Michigan State's tough. Like they're just some tough group of dudes always. They're going to rebound hard. Tom Izzo's always had 4 bigs that he rotates. Like, I don't know if it's a fact, but I don't know if it's a fact. It could be false. I could be making it up. But in some way, somehow, like they got 20 fouls between the 4 of them, and they want to use all 20. Yeah. And they try to, like, they're going to bruise you. They're going to hit you. Gabe Brown is tough. And, like, Michigan State is winning games. They lost 2 to really good teams, but Max Christie hasn't even made shots yet.
Yeah.
And it's an adjustment going to the college game. Everybody goes through it, but he starts making shots, and Joey Hauser's coming, and I like Tyson Walker a lot. Yeah. Coach Shrewsbury said it after the Penn State game.
Yeah.
You can't simulate the speed Michigan State plays at. They beat Penn State 31-3 in transition points. And Penn State didn't get his transition points till the end of the game. Yeah. So it was 30-0, you know what I mean? So they're really good. I like Minnesota's playing with the edge. I mean, even the game against Michigan State, you hear Tom Izzo after the game saying team's going to sneak up on people. Because, I mean, although they had 28 turnovers 2 days ago. So what I'm going to say is going to sound ridiculous, but they don't turn it over. Yeah. Although they had 20, even though they had 28 in a game, they still lead the league in least amount of turnovers per game. Yeah. So that's always going to give them a chance to stay in games. And then they got 2 really good transfers. They got all transfers, but they got 2 really good transfers in Jamison Battle and Peyton Willis. If those dudes can stay healthy, because they only play about 6 or 7 people. If those dudes stay healthy, because they're in shape and when you're playing with house money, like we were my junior year, that was us. We were picked towards the bottom of the league by everybody's poll. We had 5 freshmen. John knocked his transfers in, and we just won some games. And we just built confidence. You built the swag. So I like what Ben Johnson is doing. I mean, Ohio State. We didn't mention Ohio State. Yeah. EJ Liddell could be player of the year in the country if the season ended now. And then Kyle Young has actually been better off the bench. So if those guards at Ohio State figure it out, if they just accept, it's hard because my junior season, I had to accept that, you're not having the ball no more. You got to give it to AJ. If they just understand that they just got to throw it inside and then they'll get it back, I think Ohio State could do some damage. IU, their guards are going to have to play better. And then I think they'll be all right. But, I would say Michigan State out of that bunch. Ohio State probably be in there too in Minnesota.
Yeah, going to be. In other words, you don't expect, and Purdue's already got a conference loss, you don't expect a team like Purdue to, even with its last conference games, to go through unscathed. There's just too many good teams.
Honestly, though, see, I say all of that. I feel like this is a season, and we were talking about this morning. Feels like a Big Ten season. Kind of how it feels now is that you could have Purdue be a number 1 seed in the tournament, and then you may have 8 teams get in, but be 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds, lower seeds. Yeah. So Purdue, if Purdue can make threes, they could run away with it. And that's not me being biased. I think, because Wisconsin, you look back to, I'm a Purdue. I was going to games at this. This is when I started going to games, but Wisconsin, Baby Boilers beat Wisconsin twice. Yeah. And that was the only team that beat Wisconsin. So Wisconsin if they could have figured out the Baby Boilers, they would have went unbeaten. So I think this is one of the better teams that the league has seen, because you got 2 at each position. I think I don't know. I think Illinois will give them problems just because of the guards. I think Illinois will be a great test because, Kofi's huge in the middle, and he's playing more minutes now. And then it's just those minutes he's out the game, they struggle. But they got, people don't talk about Alfonso Plummer. Alonzo Plummer, I mean, he's averaging like 25 the last 4 games. And if you don't, I mean, you get Carbello back in there, those guards are really good. So that could be, those are the teams that, even when I played, those are the teams that bother Purdue. Really quick guards that get in the paint, make plays, that can beat you off the dribble. So I think Purdue wins the league. That's my early prediction. But I think there's a couple teams that can give them a chase, but I think they ultimately run away with it.
All right. You're going to do great in this, Ray. You already are, man. That's great stuff. I'm learning as I'm listening. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate your time and your very busy schedule. We'll look for you on the air. We'll be listening. Those that aren't in Mackey Arena on Monday will be hearing you call the Purdue Incarnate Word game. Carson Cunningham, right, will be the head coach of Incarnate Word as well. So that'll be a fun experience. All right, happy holidays to you and your loved ones. We thank you so much for your time, and we've always appreciated over the years. You've always been so gracious to share your insights with us, and we'll try not to bug the heck out of you, but we'll bug you again before long. So have a great holiday, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully in Mackey Arena before long as well. So we want to thank our sponsors, XXX, on the hill, but on the level, the Purdue tradition since 1929. I think a Rapheal Davis sandwich is in the offing before long. Hilton Garden Inn, and tomorrow's a big day. State HDI tonight, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson and WLFI Gordon Jackson. We appreciate all that you've done for us this year. We'll be looking forward to our next show, which will be the first week in January 2022. Hard to believe. And we'll look forward to that. So safe holidays for everybody, and enjoy the holidays. And Purdue basketball and football it'll be busy come the next few weeks.